Hi, I'm Joseph Dunham. I'm going to talk to you today about confidence intervals. I was assigned a week 10 for our assignment to do our project, and hopefully I'll be able to help you guys understand better confidence intervals. Okay, so what are confidence intervals? Here, confidence intervals are what is the likelihood to help us understand the population by using the means of taking a sample and testing it. Confidence intervals are an estimated range of values that seem reasonable based on what we've observed. Okay, the center is still the sample mean, but we've got some room on either side for uncertainty. Okay, this was a definition by some specific statisticians. So what we do is basically our mean is center mass, and what we're trying to figure out is where we're at. And basically, I feel like if it was a person, the mean would be the body, and our arms would be our confidence interval. Okay, what are things that entail in our confidence intervals? Okay, we have our sampling errors, because with everything there's always going to be errors. No two people are going to be exactly the same in every test that we have. Okay. These confidence intervals help us check, if you can see there, the population parameter. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to understand the population parameters. So here we have some different factors in each confidence interval. Okay, here we have our variations and sample sizes. Okay, what we do is if we have a larger variation, more times than not, we're going to have a larger confidence interval. Okay, if we have a smaller variation, we're probably going to have a smaller confidence interval. With sample size, it's the exact opposite. More times than not, if we have a smaller sample size, the larger the interval is going to be. If we have a larger sample size, the smaller the interval is going to be. Okay, but before we get into it, here's some key items that we need to focus on. We need to first remember that this is supposed to be a sample of the population. Okay, the mean is going to be what we're trying to figure out and help branch out those parameters from the mean. And then we also need to help understand the standard deviation. Alrighty, what we have here is, when we talked about sampling errors, we also talked about, when we talked about confidence intervals, we talked about sampling errors. Okay, we have EBM here. It has to go hand in hand with confidence intervals. Okay, your error-based margin is related to your confidence interval. All right, we have them there. How are they related? We'll be able to explain more in this for our margin of error and how it's related to the mean. Okay, we have a couple different formulas here. What we have here is our t-distribution, which is better if we're doing more of a smaller sample size. So anybody that's normally 30 samples or 30 values or less, we like to use our t-distribution. Our t-distribution, we help figure out those parameters, putting in our calculator, using our mean. Then we do plus or minus to indicate whether we're doing our high or low value, or our high or low end for our interval. Go through, we find our t-score, as well as our t-score times our standard deviation divided by the square root of our total values. Okay, z-distributions a little bit different. It's more for our bigger samples. Okay, we still have our mean here. We do our plus or minus to also indicate whether we're going for our high or our low end of our interval. And then we're also going to use our standard deviation as well, divided by our square root of our sample size. Okay, so here's just kind of an example here. We have our mean plus or minus 1.69 is the z-score for a 95 percentile, okay? Or 95% confidence interval. All right, and then we do minus our 1.2, and then however many people we have. Alrighty. So normally after that, when we get it graphed, we end up having something that kind of looks like this. Okay, we have here still dead center, we have our mean. Okay, we also have our low end, so our mean minus our error base margin, or our margin of error. And then we also have our mean plus our error base margin. Okay, this one here is demonstrating a 95% confidence interval. Normally 95% is kind of what we go to. It's more of like the default confidence interval, and kind of an indicator of how we find our 95 percentile, or excuse me, our 95% confidence interval is coming off of our mean. It's normally 2 standard deviations up, 2 standard deviations down. Okay, and then as well as we have our alpha level here on each side divided by 2. Our alpha is our 1 minus our confidence interval. Okay, so that way if we have 95% here, we have 2.5% on our low end and 2.5% on our high end of our sample. Okay, and we do a lot of things with that. People do statistics all day, using that. Here's kind of a demonstration of more of a unified sample. Okay, we have 2 different things you can choose of, where if we expand our variation like we talked about before, it can get a little messy and it can really throw off our samples if we don't get a big enough sample. Okay, hopefully this is able to help you guys better understand confidence intervals. Alrighty, as well as if you need to, here's my references to help us out, broaden our ideas, and help understand these a little more effectively. Okay, thank you.